Hello legends and super legends. Welcome to Veloharmony. It rained part of the night and it's still a little damp. I'm looking on the deck. There's a slight chance of rain and then it's supposed to be cloudy. So I just left the mud guards on the bike. The mud guard's been on the bike all week. I'm gonna take the blue bike with me in the lighthouse. And nobody else RSVP, so I'm hoping it's only Paul. When it's only Paul, we can get a long ride in. And I need some more conditioning because I've been busy during the week. So that's why I'm hoping it's just him so we can ride about 4 hours plus. So we'll take some clips for you guys. We're wearing a team kit today. And our new Santini gloves. This is the aerodynamic fingerless glove. Very, very nice, very supportive. I love it. And so you can see it goes with the design on the kit. Well, the guy who designed the jersey also suggested that we go this route. The hands inside are black and our team design is on the outside. We got two versions of the gloves, the short and the long. Those of you who want to get yourself a copy, it'll work with any kind of kit. That's the reason we put black on the inside. And it's got red and black. Of course, our logo is in orange and black, but it's on the Veloharmony shop at veloharmony.com. Get yourself a copy. They're limited. So I hope you guys get a chance to get some K's in, guys and girls, and we're gonna head out. The temperature range is gonna be 22 to 24 C. So it's a tight range. It's like 72 Fahrenheit to start, and I think 75 or 76 by the time the ride's over. So nice and mild, decent conditions for riding. So I'm all packed up, ready to go. Good morning, legends and super legends. You can see week number 6 in a row with rain on Saturday. See the yard's all wet. It rained part of the night. There's light rain right now. It's not supposed to rain much, so I'm contemplating, do I bring my rain vest or not? I may just go inside and get it because it looks like, regardless of what they said would happen, I think we're gonna have some rain. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my vest because I need to be able to protect the gimbal, and the rain vest will be perfect. So I'm gonna pause the camera here and go inside. Yeah, I went back in to get my rain vest, my Rafa rain vest, and get my shoe covers. I got the Rafa Pro Team shoe covers because they're easy to put on. There was a very small chance of rain, like 30%, but it's raining right now and I'm covering my shoes. I'm gonna put on the Rafa Pro Team shoe covers. It's pretty easy to get on. I hate my feet being wet, so I cover my shoes whenever possible. It's very light rain. It doesn't look like it will be lasting, but I'm gonna cover my shoes because I hate my feet being wet. So 2 weeks in a row, these little percentages of rain have panned out to be actual rain. So I'm not taking any chances. This will keep my shoes clean as well.
I decided to wear the team kit because Paul had sent a message early this morning that it was nice and warm. He was wearing the team kit. I figured I'd wear it too. So, with this rain vest on, I feel kind of warm. In the winter, I plan on using this vest as a layer of warmth, not just for rain. That's why I went ahead and got black, even though I had mentioned that I really didn't want black with it. Black would go with more kit. It just makes sense. So we'll have one garment that would be very flexible. So, time to hit the road. We'll get Paul. I'm gonna change the direction of the camera. Got to change the gimbal from locked to pan. Okay. See, it's wet. And it was not supposed to be raining much. The forecast said 20%, 30%. But when I got up this morning, the deck was wet. So I knew I had removed the mud guards yesterday, and I just went ahead and put them back on. It's actively raining now.
So right about here, I synchronized to the satellite, connected to the satellite, and you can see the stats are showing up.
So, 6 weeks in a row, man.
6 weeks in a row of rain on Saturday. That's very unusual.
I have to wait till I get the Paul to zip up my rain vest. It's not raining super hard, so my back is protected, so I'm good.
I speeded up here. I'm heading out to meet the boys. No one had RSVP, so as far as I know at this point, it's only Paul. And so the plan is to do at least 4 hours today.
Guys, notice these cars may not appear to be going very fast. In this subdivision, speed limit is 32 kilometers an hour. That's 20 miles an hour. And the officers here, they will stop you and make it clear that it's the limit. It's not a suggested speed. So people in the know behave themselves.
The flags out here are for
that's our volunteer fire department right there.
President's Day was on Monday before this ride, and then there was Washington's birthday on Thursday, so they just left the flags out throughout the neighborhood.
So as I expected, there is no one at the ride start. Oh, actually, I spoke early. Looks like Christian is there. Christian and Paul.
There were no cars parked there, so I just thought nobody was there until I spotted them.
I have to go back, man. to get my rain gear. I walked out the door, the rain just came down. Hey, Christian.
Hi, man.
How you doing?
Yeah, fine. You?
Good. This guy got the same propel.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, he's got a powder blue. Yep. See, Christian got the aluminum brake thing there.
Yeah.
Christian's brakes are routed on the opposite side versus Paul's bike.
The guys on the channel like bikes. It's like, so you got a giant propel also.
I changed this one.
You changed that.
see?
Yeah.
Looks like he has a little close.
Yeah.
Did yours come with the Altegra or did you change it? No, I changed it.
If you notice the top of Christian's bar, his tapes are all worn. You can see where he's riding most of the time on the corner there. That's where he's putting a lot of weight. It's chewed through the tape.
What they have, 105?
No.
Well, you got the frame yourself. I think he already took the components of the other bike. Yeah, remember he had a white bike.
Yeah.
This morning.
Yeah, man. I get like close there. Rain.
I opened the door and rain, and it was not even supposed to be raining.
Yeah.
According to the forecast,
Yeah.
the rain was supposed to be over. I wasn't even going to cover my shoes, but I
Yeah.
looked on the deck was wet.
Yeah.
So I walked outside, rain. So I went and got the cover and just put on this vest. All right, guys, let's roll.
I said, Bob has too much vacation, man. I gotta pull him out, rain or not. Come out. Let's play.
Yeah, Paul's talking about bringing a white bike out. He said that the white bike had been sitting at home on vacation too long.
I said, I hear you, man. It's like a man. Why can't you take both?
Yeah, I took off the mud guards yesterday
You did?
because the weather said
Yeah.
it would just be overcast really for the most part. It was supposed to rain in the wee hours, maybe 20-30%,
Yeah.
but it rained more, of course. So I walk out, I have this barrel by the door that I collect rainwater, so I filmed it and showed the guys. 6 weeks in a row, rain on Saturday.
Christian's bike had that frame he currently has was replaced under warranty with another bike he had from Giant that had an
March
issue.
9th.
Yeah, Christian's talking about a ride or a race he's going to do in Louisiana on March 9th. And he says it's only 4 hours. I mean, I know where Louisiana is, but it's pretty flat. It's a lot flatter than Houston. They might have a few little mounds here and there, but that's not anything I'm thinking about doing. So he was going to send me the link, and I tried to tell him I'm not going to Louisiana on March 9th. I guess he didn't get that. So we just kind of moved on, got into the ride here. So Paul's going to bring his Cervelo and his Catante to the studio, and we're going to do reviews on his bikes as well, the other bikes, for Review Wednesday in the future. I mentioned that to him, so that's the plan. And then I also plan to do a review of a TT bike that Alan has. I had shown the brake earlier on Christian bike because his is routed on the drive side, his front brake. If you see the cable, it goes to the drive side. Paul's is different. Paul's cable is routed to the left side, the non-drive side. That's how his is. I guess in 2015 they routed it that way, and then they changed it around because his brakes are set a little differently. And one legend mentioned it in a text, and I went and verified. So Paul's front brake, the cable routes on the non-drive side. Christian's routes on the drive side, which is opposite the rear. But Paul's bike, they route on the same side. So we'll do a review of that Cervelo, and we'll do a review of his Catante and put them out there.
The gimbal, it was down. I just moved my hand a little bit and got it to adjust. But sometimes it acts really weird. Depending on
early in the ride, so I'm keeping my cadence up to kind of get myself warmed up. I'm on the small chain ring and just revving probably a 62 to 65 inch gear.
Now this is what they forecasted. Cloudy, no rain. They don't have to be accurate in their job. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad I covered my shoe.
Shortly after here, I gave Paul the camera. He'd already mentioned to give him the camera whenever I was ready. And so right here on Rayford, I give it to him. I was eating, so I freed up my hand. But this will give you an idea of what kind of conditions we're dealing with. Listen to the wind. And it's been ducked down to keep the decibel level realistic. But just look at my vest. That lets you know what we're dealing with. And we ended up doing Ridge Lake Shores today because we wanted to do at least 4 hours. So it ended up being a long, hard, fast ride. That's why I titled it on the thumbnail, Speed Endurance. So Christian stayed on the right shoulder there. A lot of times during this ride today, he mentioned that he put a larger tire on his bike. I think he has a 28 on the back. He had mentioned that earlier. But he was riding in the dirt. Part of the ride, he ended up going in the grass because he's been doing a lot of mountain bike races. And I guess he forgot this is road bike. So, Paul and I joked about it because you can have a flat fairly easily on these tires because there's a lot of crap in the grass. That gets washed there, that can give you a puncture. So he wasn't too worried about it, but he spent a lot of time trying to ride off-road, and you'll see it later in the ride. So we're just kind of easing into the ride. It's about half hour into it, so we're all kind of loose. I'm shaking the extra banana bread out of my baggie. I keep those baggies and I reuse them.
It's like he has something loose on his cassette.
Paul's hearing some kind of noise coming from Christian's cassette. So I made a joke. There's another private joke. He laughed. But listen to the wind. I mean, it's all over, just swirling around. So when you have these kind of days where you got fronts moving in, a lot of rain, you can see the gray clouds. It rained in different spots, nothing heavy, just showers throughout the ride. So the cover on my shoe worked great. There was nothing organized enough to even get you wet, but it kept my shoe dry and clean. So right after this turn here, we get the brunt of the wind mostly behind us, and I'm warm. So I take off my jacket. I use this opportunity because the strongest wind is directly behind us. So we got a tailwind.
Check Yahoo Women.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even with that vest in my pocket, with this team kit, I could still put the gimbal in there as well. That's how expansive that pocket is. It's just the fabric stretches very well. As part of the ride, we're still
kind of warming up and just having a conversation. It's going to be a long ride, 4.5+ hours. So we're easing into it here and just catching up. It's been a while since we've ridden with Christian, so we were just kind of chatting. He's been doing a lot more mountain biking. He said he's training for mountain bike races. And in mountain bike races, the first 20 minutes can decide the race. That's some of the stuff we're talking about here. So you can see certain parts of the pavement's dry. Then you have little blotches of rain. So there's showers that went on throughout the day. I get a drink here. And then I check on Paul to see how he's doing. Because we hadn't talked much during the week. We didn't talk Friday.
I'm doing great, man. Got enough rest.
The reason we picked those gloves to go with our team kit, the design makes it very visible. You can see the bars are black, and that red and the white design just pops. Your hands are a good point for visibility in the front, so it's always good whenever possible to have some kind of contrasting color in your gloves. So we picked up that. The designer suggested that, and it just works. So we're riding two abreast here, we're talking, this is a quiet road, it's not busy. Then I make a joke about the fact that you can see the rain on either side of the center of the road, but there's no rain in the middle. Look at the middle's dry. And I'm joking about that, there's rain everywhere but right there. I said it didn't rain right there, as if to say there was a car sitting there. So Paul laughs about it. That's the nice thing about our sport, you know, you can have a conversation while you're getting a workout, you know. But the entire day was blustery. The wind is coming from the south and mostly east, but then it swirls around. Now, right now it's not so bad in this neighborhood between the houses, but once we get out on the open road, we use it to our advantage in certain points, and in certain points we have to work because we're going directly into it. I mean, it saps your speed. There's a dog on the right, so I move all the way over because it's on a long leash. I want to make sure I'm nowhere near him just in case he darts out. You notice how we turn, everybody keeps their line. You know, I'm on the inside, so I turn the inside. Christian turns, he keeps his line. That's the way you have to turn when you're turning with somebody. You have to keep your line the same way. It's clear, we let Paul know it's clear. We turn here. But we continue to ride two abreast because we're talking.
The road's not busy, and the pace is, we're still warming up. As we start to go downhill, shortly after here, I just go ahead and slip behind Christian. Right there. I'll go ahead and just slip in. You can see my cadence is up, and the ride has begun in earnest. So I slot in behind Christian and just sit in. The wind's coming from the right and in our face. More from in front than the right, because with all these trees and the houses, it's not that bad. There are parts of the ride later where you have to pretty much keep your hands on the bars because it was blowing that much. Because the road is narrow here, I always move closer to the middle to discourage vehicles from coming by. And as Paul turned this camera towards this guy in the back, he said the guy slowed down. He told me that in a little bit here. He says that. The guy backed off when he saw the camera. That's where he told me, he said when he turned the camera back, the guy slowed down. That's the guy going by. But it was too narrow in there to encourage a car to pass in the same lane, so you always want to ride like that. When it's not safe for them to pass you, you take up the lane. They can wait. You do have the right to use the whole lane, the entire lane. Putting on my sunglasses because the sun's peeking out now. There's a car back there. I put my arm out to let him know we're going to use the lane. You can hear Christian's brakes. Those carbon rims. And if you do have carbon rims and you have problems with your braking performance, it's a good argument for getting discs on your road bike if you want to, because the discs will brake a lot better than any carbon rim surface out there, even with their special pads. The pads are used to basically make sure regular pads don't tear up your rims, because you can't use the same pads on aluminum rims and then use them on carbon rims, because they get little aluminum specks in the pad that can really chew into your carbon. So don't attempt that. If you have carbon rims, get the required pads for your rims. They brake better and they protect your rims. It's relatively early in the ride, and since it's going to be a long day, out of habit, I keep my cadence up early in the ride. It saves your legs for later. The guys on the bike path that we just passed, that's the bike path over there. I don't care for that because there's people that hike on there, run, baby strollers, all kinds of stuff. It's not for fast riding. Plus, it has a lot of blind spots. It weaves. There's a bridge for it over there, the wooden bridge. And we use it sometimes when we're coming back this way from time to time, but we slow way down because there's just too many blind spots in there. It's just not designed for fast bike riding. It's a hike and bike path, so it's anything goes on it. I'm more comfortable on the road. Plus, it doesn't go everywhere we want to go anyway. So it's a good attempt. People use it a lot for running and just going for walks. So you got to be aware when you're on this kind of paths that you watch out for the other users. You can see it behind the trees there. It parallels the road here and then it deviates when you get up to the intersection. The community in the woodlands, they have that throughout. And so you'll have skateboarders and whoever else on there. It's not exclusively for bicycles. The road goes up a little bit here. I stay in the same gear and just keep my cadence respectable. It's clear. We're going to be turning at the intersection up there. Check for cars. There's one coming, and I tell Paul, car, we have enough time, but I let him know something's coming. This Christian was pretty much right next to me. So a good investment for wet riding definitely are shoe covers. Even if you figure, oh, I'm not going to ride in the rain, I'll just take the day off, you from time to time may get caught in a shower. So when there's a chance of rain, it's a lot easier to just cover your feet and you have less cleanup when you get back. Because I think the cleanup is what moves a lot of riders away from riding when it's wet. But at some point or another, if you ride bikes long enough, you're going to get caught in the rain. It's going to happen. So you might as well be prepared. I've gotten to really like riding in the rain. In fact, Paul sent me a text on Sunday after this ride. It rained all day. We got a front that came in. And he sent me a text saying that he was hoping that we would have been able to ride on Sunday because he really wanted to ride in the rain. So it's a lot of fun. The roads are lightly traveled when it's wet, and it's just a lot of fun when you have the right equipment. So I wasn't able to go out. I was very busy on Sunday, so I really didn't do any. I just did an indoor workout. So didn't take advantage of that nice rain, but it rained the entire day, just steady, just nice. I love days like those. So you can see that's the first climb coming up. It's around 4% at the steepest point. And all I do is stay in a respectable gear and keep my cadence reasonable. We're just riding the hill. I'm not accelerating. I'm not attacking it. I'm just riding it. I'm probably, let's see, it says 164, so you're at the bottom of zone 4. somebody on the right, I believe. Yeah, it's a runner. That's one of the reasons we don't use that edge. Plus the fact that it's not continuous and the curb juts out into it. I mentioned that in some of the other videos. We'll use it if we're chatting and not really riding per se. And one person will be there so we can talk and not take up the entire lane. And you have to be alert for runners and other people that are using it. So rider coming the other way, we wave at him. I think I nodded at him, or I just kind of flicked my hand. I didn't take it off the bars. Just raised my fingers. I like to wave at other cyclists. You know, it's a small community. Even if they don't wave back, it's not a problem for me. I just like to do that because you're outside, and I think it's just more civilized. Not just cyclists, people walking, running. I always greet them. It's just something when you're in the car you really can't do. It's not practical. But you're on a bicycle or you're walking, that's just civilized. That's just second nature. So shortly after here, we get out onto 2978, the Fish Creek Thoroughfare, after going through the woodlands, and we pick up the pace significantly. Christian starts messing around, riding in the dirt, the road that they're doing the construction on. He decides to ride in the dirt because he's training for his mountain biking. So Paul and I say he should have brought his mountain bike. So he rides the dirt, he rides the grass when we get into Ridge Lake Shores for a while. But while he's doing that, I start messing around with him. Then another rider passes us. So it gets really interesting then. But it was more me messing with Christian, and then we came back on that rider that passed us like he was standing still. So he must have gone really hard just to pass us and then let off the gas, I guess. But we weren't trying to really catch him. But once we saw him again, we poured it on. So there's a lot of fun there. So here we're on the Fish Creek Thoroughfare on our way to Ridge Lake Shores. And this is where the construction area, they've basically shut down the old pavement. So I roll to the front here. I give Paul the camera. Because I don't know if Christian's been out here since they made this change. I'm telling him we're going to be moving over. I'm watching that truck. There's nothing behind us. The road's clear. So I take the lane. This is where they've closed the old pavement, the old side, and this is the new pavement. I'm basically rolling at about 20 miles an hour. Christian jumps in the dirt. Paul says, look at him. And so I decide, okay, you're going to ride the dirt. I'm like, you're not passing us. So I pick up the pace. You can see it's like 36 kilometers an hour. So I figure he's going to have to work harder on the dirt than we do on the pavement. But he's playing around, working on the dirt because he's got a mountain bike race that he's training for that's coming up. That's what he told us early in the ride. One of the things we're talking about. So I decided I'm going to match his pace, pick it up a little bit. And so you can see we're side by side here. And so we're playing around. The road goes up a little bit, so our speed kind of dropped. And then you see right here, this guy, he waves. That's what I'm talking about, an experienced rider. He didn't need to say on your left. He saw us holding our line. And you see he gave us room and he came by and he waved. That's the stuff I talk about all the time. You don't need to be yelling at people when you pass. If they look like they know what they're doing, just don't crowd them. Just pass. And he said hi. He said hi to Paul before he even got to me because I heard Paul say hello. Then I looked over and then saw him wave. So at this point, I'm not thinking about him. I'm messing with Christian and making sure that Christian does not pass us while he's in the dirt. And so that's what I'm doing here, just watching Christian. You can see we're going a little downhill. It says -0. So our speed's picking up. We've got a tailwind, but it really is like a tail cross. The wind's coming from our right and behind. And it's hard to know which. I think the wind from behind is stronger because we're doing almost 40 kilometers an hour. And it doesn't feel super hard, even though my heart rate says 164, 165 now. But the wind is blustery. So we don't have a perfect tailwind. We've got wind all over the place. It's one of those days you got to keep your hands on the bars. So I just want to make sure Christian does not pass us while he's in the dirt. So that's all that's on my mind at this point. I look for cars. The road's ending. The new pavement's ending. So I take the lane. And then this is the old pavement. And we've got a shoulder here. And I get on the shoulder. And look at our speed. So I just go ahead and use my cadence. We're above 30 miles an hour. Right about 30 miles an hour here. Because with the downhill and the slight tailwind, it's not super hard. And so there's Christian coming. We had put a bit of distance on him. Our speed's a little bit below 50 kilometers an hour. Christian goes by, I'm like, okay, it's on. So I rev up a little bit. I don't know if I shifted up or not, but anyway, I kept my cadence close to 100. I must have shifted up because I'm doing about 30 miles an hour. So I'm probably like a 53, 16, or 15. Then I realized we're catching up to that guy who had passed a while back. And I see him, so I look back for cars. Christian backs off the power. I go by. And when I pass Christian, we come up on this guy so quickly that it surprised me. And he seems to be searching for gears because I hear him shifting and the chain is making noises. And I hesitate for a moment, then I downshift. Right, you see my cadence go down, I downshift. As I go by, I rev it up. And right here, I'm in the heart of zone 4, and it's a hard pace. And right here, I'm going hard. You see my heart rate says 178. I usually time trial about 185, so. And this road is relatively flat. There are certain sections where it goes up, but then the wind's all over the place. So you can see my speed is right about 39 kilometers an hour, but it's hard. You can see that guy back there. It took everything he had to get on our train. That's why I accelerated when I went by. I didn't want to make it easy for him to get on. He was searching for gears already. I'm not sure what he was doing, but he was searching. He's an experienced rider. He was trying to get some kind of a rhythm. So I end up staying up here for quite some time because at this effort here, you don't want to overextend yourself. And my mind is like, okay, you've got a 5-hour ride here, dude. This is under 2 hours. Don't burn all the fuel. So, and I'm just staying steady. And it's getting harder because the wind is there and the road starts to become like a false flat. And I'm just holding a rhythm here. You can see my cadence drop below 90. It's a comfortable cadence because this is more like a almost like a TT pace per se. But you can see my speeds dropping because the conditions are changing. And I think right here, Christian comes to the front because he can sense my speeds dropping. I didn't want to sit up there at that effort the whole time. So I pick up my pace again and get on Christian's wheel. I don't give him much of a gap. See that? As soon as he came by, I jumped on his wheel. We're going hard here. You can hear the wind. I had not planned to go this hard, but it was so much fun when we started playing with Christian. And then when Christian came by, and I went by, it's like, okay, I opened a can of worms. I'm about 10 beats below my threshold pace. And this is not easy, this is hard. Especially with the conditions and in the road, the grade changes. I think after this light, I don't know if it registered or not, but I can feel it. Just a slight change, but then we got the wind. All I wanted to do was keep it hard enough to where we would just maintain this pace all the way to Ridge Lake Shores. I don't like to pass people and then slow down. So it was good that Christian came to the front because as I backed off the pace, he felt it and just slipped through. From time to time, I periodically looked back. I think it's here or a little later. I would just glance back to make sure Paul was in the draft because when I was going hard, Paul was right on my hip because the wind's coming from the right as well. If you look in the distance, you can see the little rolling curvature of the road. And when you're going hard, that makes a difference because you've got to find a tempo. You hear that wind. So we're working. So if you have not trained your body to work at these intensities, it can be a shock because you don't have the adaptation, because the body's burning glycogen, not just fat. I look back to make sure Paul was still there. And I think after a little while, I tell Christian that we're going to be taking the new pavement. The new pavement is kind of a graded asphalt, almost like a washboard surface. Not terrible. Right here the road goes up, and you can see it says 1%, and I rev up. I use my cadence mostly to try to keep my tempo reasonable. You can see my heart rate went up like 3 beats or something like that. So if you're not trained, it might go up 10 beats, and it makes a difference when you're going hard. So I tell Christian right here, backing up, I told him we're going to turn right by the barrels. I don't know if he heard me or not, because I turned off the power, and then he pointed at us, okay, then I told him again. And then because there's a guy behind us, I wanted him to know we're turning through here because he's going straight. And look at the pavement, it's all chewed up. They graded it so that the next layer of asphalt can stick better. But this is a lot smoother than that thing we rode when we went to the Spirit ride. It's not that bad. So at this point, I'm just kind of letting the effort come down a little bit. We're going to be turning right up there where that truck is. It was a nice effort that we put out. It's fun, man. It was just a lot of fun. We didn't plan to do that, but that's why you're out here. So even on a long ride, that's the point I was making. We go hard. You can see Paul. Paul was working. Paul's recovering. I told him to watch this gravel. Christian with his crazy self, he didn't care. The gravel's kind of mushy, so you got to be careful when you turn into it. So Christian told us earlier that he put a 28 on his Giant. So Paul was excited that a 28 would fit that. So I think that's something he will try in the future. The 28 on this blue bike got like maybe 3 millimeters of clearance to the brakes. It's very close, but it works. My other two frames can take a 28 with plenty of room. I think it'll probably take a 32. I know the Colnago can take whatever you throw at it. They built it. That's Christian in the grass. And so Paul and I said he should have brought his mountain bike. And I think he does it again further down here. He goes in the grass again. At this point, we had gone hard back there. We're kind of just recuperating a little bit before we go again. We got some nice climbs in here. There Christian goes again in the grass. And that's what Paul said. He should have brought his mountain bike.
Let him do whatever he wants to do.
I told Paul, I said, I think Christian's trying to have a flat.
He should have brought his mountain bike.
So we had to call out to him because he was going straight.
Christian, this
So he turned around and came up.
That's what happens when you met.
So after a short while, Christian starts to play around again. And what I'm doing is I'm making sure that I don't expend too much energy. I had pulled for a while when we were going fast on the highway back there. So I'm not sure if I already took a gel or not, but I think I did. And we've got about another almost 3 hours of riding. And Christian ends up paying the price later because late in the ride, he gets a little tired, especially after we turn off the camera on the way home. Because he rides at a slower cadence than I do. That's just his style. And so what ends up happening is he uses more muscular endurance, muscular strength, a lot more of the ride than I do. So later in the ride, you know, it catches up with you. But he's a strong rider, so he pretty much can handle stuff. But you have to know what you're capable of. So when he was playing back there, I sprinted a little bit. I didn't go full gas or anything. And when we turned here, then I told Paul, I said, that's why we're doing 30 miles an hour fairly quickly back there. Because this thing, we're going the opposite direction now, and that wind is blowing. It's one of those, you can't take your hands off the bars. It will blow your bike. You can hear it. And I dubbed it down. It was just, it's a strong southeasterly flow with a little bit of west. You know, it swirls around. So all I'm doing here is keeping my effort reasonable because a lot of this ride I did a lot of pulling, which I like to do. And so I'm thinking ahead. I said, we got another 3 hours. I'm going to make sure I don't tap into my reserves too much. So this climb comes up, and I think later in the climb, Christian stands. I wait till the last 10% of the climb before I stand. Because when you stand, you're using more energy. Your heart rate goes up. See here, he stands, and I'm spinning. So when you stand, the benefit is you use your upper body strength so you can push a bigger gear. Your cadence is slower, but you burn more energy a little bit. So you have to do that sparingly. Christian likes to stand because he's working on strength per se. Because for mountain biking, you don't need a high cadence all the time. It's mostly strength. You're on uneven surfaces, so you use bigger gears. And that's what he's trying to cultivate here. So you got to know what's going on so you don't waste your energy. Knowing what he's doing and what he's working on. Right here I stand just to finish the climb. You hear the wind, and then I sit. So he's building muscle strength for mountain biking. So his cadence is lower. The entire ride, his cadence was lower because that's what he's focusing on. I'm working on making sure my versatility remains to where I can snap speed when I need to. That's why we're able to catch him quickly back on that highway. He's pedaling 75 to maybe 85 or so, and I'm pedaling around 100 RPM, so I can get more acceleration. So if you watch him, his cadence is notably slower than mine. That's just his style. So anytime there's a grade or wind, he works at making sure he's building muscle strength. That will help him when he's on his mountain bike in the mud and the grass. That's when you use it. You hear that wind. So we're working here. I just slipped behind him and I'm using a lower cadence because it feels like I'm climbing. We have a slight grade. It says -0, but it feels like a grade, but we're going into the wind. This is the area where Jose fell when we came a few weeks back. I tell Christian to be careful. Christian's never careful because he is always playing on his bike. And so, but he has a good line. He's on the inside. You see that? Our line's very close, and then he goes through. So he's a good bike handler. The mountain biking has helped him tremendously. That's how I started my cycling too. I used to do a lot of mountain biking. I got away from it because I kept running into tree roots and rocks and seemed to fall more than on the road. It's a lot of fun, but you got to get a trail that's maintained. And so I seem to have more crashes off-road than I did on the road. Most of them are okay, but you got to be careful where you fall because if you among rocks and stuff, when you hit them, they can do some damage. So I don't know what Christian was doing there, but you can see I went inside. I thought he was going to turn. He went straight. He was drinking. And so I just took a tighter turn. So you always have to be watching the people you're riding with to see what they're doing. So even though I was going to turn behind him, when he went straight, I just adjusted. Yeah, you have to continue to pay attention, especially when you're not riding solo. The group or in company requires even more attention because you got people in close proximity to you. So after climbing that hill with Christian, he went a little hard after the climb. There's a lull in the pace here, and then we start to go again. The wind's blowing from our left and slightly behind us, but mostly from the left. That's when you use the time, get a drink, whatever, so you're ready to go again. That's the fun thing about long rides. You don't need to kill yourself. You get used to this after a while. Just because the ride is long does not mean it's easy. This ride ended up being a very hard ride. And at this time of year, that's kind of how we ride. We go slower in the winter. Now spring's coming. We're going to step up the endurance ride a notch. So Christian starts to go. I stand up and just stand next to him. And you can see how I just sat in one motion without changing my pedaling. In addition to practice, having a bike that fits you helps. That's the way you are supposed to be able to ride. And I think there's a car back. Somebody said car back. It was Paul. So we queue up to make it easy for the car to pass because there's a curve coming up right up here. Yeah, there you go. It goes around. We're gonna go left. There's a three-way stop sign. That's the way we came the opposite direction. And when we did the climb the first time, we came the opposite direction. So we're just taking a shorter way to get out of this subdivision because we're headed into Ribbon Chapel Road. We're going into the area called Honie. There's more climbing. This was another reason why I did not go deep into my reserves when Christian was attacking the hill earlier, like I mentioned, because most of the ride I end up doing a lot of pulling. And so sometimes when you pull for a long time, your body needs a bit of a respite before you can do a hard effort again. So you've got to really listen to that. And there will be a moment that will happen, I will point that out to you guys, where Christian starts to go really hard, and I just go ahead and let him go because my legs were like wanting no part of it. And it was clear to me that we had like 2 hours left in the ride, and you know, there's only 3 of us, so you can't blow all your fuel because you've got to keep the group moving. We're heading to the main highway out there, which is the Fish Creek thoroughfare, and we're gonna go north. We're not going back the way we came. This is why I mentioned to him I had no interest in driving 4 hours to Louisiana to do a race, because you know, it's flat. He said there are little hills out there, but that's not what I'm into right now anyway. Been there, done that. So this is the same new pavement that, you know, was further south of where we entered. This is the north side. You can see it's graded. It's not that rough, and it's a grade. Let's see, it says 1%. When we turned, I felt it. It's probably 1 point something. This takes us to an overpass about maybe 1.5 miles down the road. Probably 2 kilometers, 2.6 kilometers down the road, we get to an overpass. It's fairly steep, and so right here, I'm just trying to stay in the same gear. Don't do anything too much. I mean, we're just kind of rolling here. So it's a little over 2 hours, so we got about 3 hours left in the ride. You always have to be thinking about what's to come. You can see the overpass on the left, and then I noticed that they look like they're going to build a second overpass on this side, which will be really cool. So then we'll have nice wide shoulders to go over them, because they're at least 3%. Yeah, that genius wastes all his diesel fuel. I'm not sure what that was about, but I think that fuel is too cheap in the US. Needs to get to about $10 a gallon. We'll see who'll be doing all the driving. Anyway, Christian had taken off, so I kind of let him go. He was working on his muscle strength. We're turning left here, but it's really busy. So I don't like to stop still in the middle of the road, so I continue to roll. There are cars coming the opposite way, so I continue to roll slowly. And so when the last car, I'm kind of doing like a mini track stand, the last guy here, he slows down. I don't know why.
Come on, man.
Yeah, Paul even tell him to come on. So I went behind him. This way I don't have to sit in the middle of that busy road. Did a U-turn, and I'm on the shoulder here, and we're good to go. I don't like to be stationary on a busy road unless there's a left turn lane. That one did not happen. So Christian had turned because he had enough room, and I guess that's why that guy slowed down. Christian looked like he was trying to ride in the grass over here, pointing out to Paul. I said, what is he doing? I thought he was going to ride off the road over there on the right. So this is the reason why I don't respond to Christian's efforts all the time, because you can see he did that effort. Now he needs a break. So now I'm at the front and I'm pulling. So everybody's got a different plan during a group ride, and you just need to be aware of that. You don't have to chase everything. So he's sitting in the draft now after his effort on that bridge, that overpass, recovering, because his legs need to break. So if all of us had gone hard like that, then we would have slowed down the group. So I get to the front, keep the group moving. So Christian is using this opportunity to get a drink. I think it's here where he takes a drink. Yeah, that's what you have to do. When you're in the draft, that's when you drink. That's when you reach for a gel. Whatever you got to eat, you eat. Then when you come to the front, you can help the group along. So we're approaching Ribbon Chapel Road. This Shell station is a stop point. That's where we had stopped before in the past. That's where we stopped with those guys when they came from California. So I'm asking them if anybody needs to stop.
Yeah, we can. Go.
So they say go. So we're all good. We got enough fluids. We don't need to stop. And this is a little over the 2-hour mark. So it's a good stop point usually for us. But it's a mild day. We didn't drink all our water. So we're good. We did not end up stopping on this ride at all. That's why I drink before I leave the house and everything. So I don't depend on just the bottles. So I was stretching my legs back there. That's why I stood for a little bit to kind of stretch. Because this is a drag. This is a false flat. This is Rayburn Chapel Road. We come out here because of the climbs. It has one of the steepest climbs on our entire route. I think this is where Christian goes to the front. I slip behind him. Since Paul is handling the camera, he'll pull from time to time, but most of the time, I'd much rather he just get everything on film. And you know, it's just, he enjoys that too, so it's just the way it works. And a lot of times he's not really in the draft anyway. He's getting shots, he's framing shots, so he's catching wind. So he's working back there. He's not always drafting perfectly. And I'm used to riding solo, so before I met Paul, I would do 3 to 5 hours just by myself. So I want the workout. I like being out in the wind and pulling. So I just go ahead and sit in. This road is what we call a false flat. And then about maybe 3 kilometers down the road, we hit some nice little climbs. We're a little over 2 hours into the ride, 2 hours and 20 minutes, 2:18. We didn't get heavy rain, but we got showers, sprinkles at different points on the route. So those shoe covers were perfect. Kept my feet dry, kept my shoes clean. I checked for a car. I think we have a car behind us. I want to make sure they don't try to come by at this intersection.
Straight, yeah.
So Christian asks if we're going straight, and Paul confirms it. So I used this opportunity to recover from the last long pull that I took. You can see the climb in the distance. As we approach the climb, all I do is I make sure I'm in a gear that's not going to create a problem for me. And I decide to stand, and as I stand, I shift up a couple of cogs. You see my cadence is in the 70s. Because I don't want to sprint here. I just want to stand and change the way my muscles are working. So as soon as the climb ended, I sat back down. And all I'm doing here is saving energy because we've got almost 2.5 hours to ride. And I plan on doing a lot of pulling. So by saving energy does not mean I'm not going to ride the hills. I'm going to ride them. I'm just not going to go deep. So we start a second climb here. This is a shorter climb, not as long or as steep as the first one we encountered. So after this climb down the road there's a little bit of a dip, then a little uphill, and then we turn right. On that turn, I'll go ahead and turn off the power to catch my breath, recover, because in about 3 kilometers, we're gonna hit a bunch of rollers again on Mill Route Road. So as we roll through this corner, I soft pedal a bit. I stand up to just kind of stretch. Christian's continuing to press on. He's not that far ahead, so I just kept my tempo. I looked back to make sure Paul was there. So Paul came around here, I think, just to maintain his momentum around the curve. You can see Christian backed up on the power, reached for a water bottle. I know what's coming, so I'm not wasting gas here. So we roll up to Christian here. I'm behind Paul. Paul is behind Christian here. I think shortly after here, I think I roll by in a little bit. I think in a little bit I'll let him know that there's a left turn coming up.
We're gonna turn left uphill.
I told him there's a left turn. Paul told him to let him know there's a left turn coming up so he can be aware. Because it creeps up on you. If you're not expecting it, it's a nondescript kind of road. So I roll up to him just to let him know, confirm, so he's ready. And I tell him left turn. That's the road right there. If you're not expecting that, it's easy to ride past it. So as we turn here, when he gets up, there's a loud noise. Right there, that's the sound. The gear, he said he had shifted before the turn. There's a loud pop. I thought the chain had broken or something, but it turned out it seems like it was a miss shift or in between shift. So I suggested to him to just go ahead and stop and check it.
Some kind of a noise coming from your here.
So I mentioned to him that he's had noise coming from his derailleur and the cassette, so you might as well check it. Good thing was the chain wasn't broken. He adjusted the barrel adjuster, the derailleur adjuster, and said it was okay. But at the end of the ride, that noise came back, so I think he needs to look at his drivetrain. Something's up. Because we went up a hill at the end of the ride. So we used this opportunity for a health break. This is a quiet road. So while he was looking at that, we took our break.
Right there, right here. You want me to hold you back? Go ahead.
So Christian takes a break as well.
Yeah.
And Paul took a break also. So I resume pulling. We're going directly into the wind, and on this highway 2854, it is hard. So we're turning right here. I let them know we're going to turn. We turn right, and there's a climb right there.
Yeah.
So we got a little over 2 hours left in the ride. So at this point, the road's going up. Christian comes to the front, and every time the road goes up, Christian was pushing his leg. So you see it says 4%, and he's pretty much going pretty hard. I decided to just hold my pace because we've got another 2 hours to ride. And I had just been pulling for miles. So I let him go, and I'm just holding my pace. And I think in a little bit, Paul comes around for a bit. I'm fiddling with the camera. I had just turned the camera on, so I wanted to make sure everything was situated. But he went hard on the uphill and then let the power off on the downhill. I think it's somewhere here where Paul comes around. We're going in these climbs and we're going directly into the wind. Yeah, Paul comes around here. And I decided to go to the front and just give Paul the camera and go ahead and ride up to Christian. As I come by, I think I hand the camera to Paul here. Because at the moment that Christian started to go up that climb, my legs just didn't feel right. I did not want to push them any harder. And so I decided to just hold my current pace because we've got a long way to go in this ride. So when I come up to him here, I said, go ahead, we're here. And so he just resumes. This way he got to ride the hill as hard as he wanted. But once we get back into town, all these efforts kind of caught up with him. So I ended up doing most of the pulling the last 45 minutes to an hour of the ride, which is fine. But you don't want to restrict people, you know. So he did his intervals on the hill, and then he turned the power off, and we caught back up to him. And then right here, after giving Paul the camera, we turn right. And I'm pretty much in the mood to ride here. We turn right here, and this road is up and down. This is called the Keenan Cutoff. It takes us west, so the wind is coming from left and pretty much swirling around. I suggested to Christian after a little while that why don't you stay by the white line? But I guess he didn't understand what I was saying because he kept moving over to the right of the shoulder here. So we all ended up riding just as hard. We did not really benefit much from the draft on this stretch because the draft is actually on his right. But he was riding so far out to the right and there's a lot of debris close to the edge of the road. I'd much rather just ride hard than get a flat. So I just stayed in the middle of the lane to give Paul somewhat of a draft. Middle of the shoulder. So the wind's coming from the left. Ideally he should be where he is right now, but he wasn't holding that position. He was drifting back and forth. You know, it's very windy. And he had just put in a big effort back on those two climbs back there, and it adds up. That was one reason I did not go deep to go with him, because I know this road, and we've got at least another 2 hours into the wind. The rest of the ride is mostly into the wind. So you can see where I am. I'm trying to stay a little to his right, but look where he is. He's all the way on the edge of the road. I can't do anything with that. I just held my position, and then he would come back from time to time. So I'm in the draft right there and here, because the wind's blowing from the left. And I just stayed here. When he would drift to the right, I would just stay here to give Paul a draft. There's a trash can in the way on the shoulder here. That's another reason to be able to see around the rider you're following for those kind of obstacles. Don't depend on the rider. I mean, most riders will call that out, but you still need to see what's coming. There's another trash can. There's 2 of them here. So we just use the main lane. This is a nice road to ride on because it's not very, very busy. And when they resurfaced it, they added that nice shoulder there, so it's good. We thought that car was gonna turn on the right. He slowed down to turn his driveway. Now over here, Christian had told me to back off because we're coming up to an intersection. I told him we're turning left, and he takes the wrong left. He turns too early. I checked for a car to take the lane. And I told him, no, not that, the next one. So I just go ahead and go into the lead here. This is where Keenan Cutoff hits Highway 149 south. And we're going straight into a headwind. And it's gusting. And this was the reason I was saving my energy. Because since there's only 3 of us in these kind of conditions, I wanted to make sure when I got here I was topped off. So I had used my jug. You can see Christian reaching for food. Since he's in the draft here, because he realized that he already pulled a long way on Keenan Cutoff. So I decided I'm just going to pull this whole way. There's another turn after probably 10 kilometers, I'm thinking, or so. It's a long way. But into this wind, it's brutal. So I settle into a rhythm here. That's why it's good to know what's coming. You always got to be aware of what the wind's doing and so forth. So we're going directly into a headwind. That's why I'm planted in the middle of the shoulder, because the wind is directly hitting us. And these are the kind of conditions that you can use in this kind of terrain to train for continued climbing, like a sustained climb. This is the kind of effort. I'm in a reasonable sized gear, but the wind keeps gusting, so my cadence is right now at 75. As long as it doesn't go below 70, I'm good. Because your legs tend to tighten up once you drop below 70 for too long. So my cadence stays between 75 probably to 90, I think. Because once there are certain stretches where the rollers kick in and we take advantage of that. But I try to keep the effort consistent. It just feels good to be in the drops. So I stayed there for a while. Between the drops and I think the hoods. And depending on, there's certain spots I used the tops because the road was going up. Got a little bit of sunshine here. It was mostly overcast on this ride, so it was nice to see a little bit of sun peeking out. See, my cadence is at 80 RPM. We're doing about 20 miles an hour into that wind. It is gusting. In the bottom of zone 4, according to my heart rate. Felt like tempo to me. So right about here, we start to go downhill. And so we're taking advantage of the terrain here. Hit 38 kilometers an hour. The wind is still there. But you see it says -2 grade, -1, now it's -0, so it's flattening out. But it's still favorable, so I use that momentum to take advantage of whatever speed we can eke out to make some progress here. Because down there where those cars are, it goes up again. And that's going to sap our speed in these conditions. Because the idea is to pace yourself in these kind of conditions. Doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're doing a time trial or whatever, you can't kill yourself on one part, otherwise the wind will beat you up. The wind of the hill. So right here is going up. I stay in the same gear. You see I'm on the tops because I'm climbing here. So my cadence goes down a little more, but I'm in the same gear and just using the terrain. Same gear I was using when we were going downhill earlier. That's slight climb because this is rolling terrain. If you look ahead down the road, you can see the hill in front of that truck way ahead there. It goes up again down there. Right here, we're going downhill again, and I take advantage of it. I think I shifted up a couple of cogs. I'm staying in the drops. You can see Christian's not even pedaling because he's drafting me and just getting sucked along. I'm basically blowing a hole in the wind for him. That's the benefit of riding in the group or riding with a few people. And like I said earlier, the ideal number of riders to get a great workout is 3 to 5. If you're in a large group and you stay near the front and you rotate often, you can get the same kind of workout in a large group if the pace is tolerable for you. So this is an incline, so we lost all that speed. And with the wind, it doesn't take much. I take a drink there. I drank a little bit there. We're going south, mostly south. Somewhat, a little bit southwesterly, but it's generally south. And the wind was there the entire time on the return. This is what really fortifies you and strengthens you when you cycle. Handling tough conditions. Winds and hills will make you tough if you ride them properly. This is the kind of effort, it's close to sweet spot for me, that you would do a long mountain climb. All I'm focusing on is keeping my tempo the same, keep the same little rhythm, keep my cadence respectable, because when it's windy and you're climbing, you don't want to get bogged down. It really can throw you off. The draft is directly behind me, so you can see Christian is staying right behind me. And this is blowing and gusting. They had sanded this road when we had a freeze a few weeks back, so I'm staying towards the left side of it where it's clean. I have to go over those little, they're like small pebbles more than anything. So the entire stretch, when I pulled, I kept the effort the same. So this is where 149 goes from south to west, and then it will go back south. So right here is going westerly, and this is an incline. It says 2%. It's an incline before the intersection where it goes more south than west. That's why you see what it says southwest at the top. We're gonna turn left and go even more south, and it's the same highway even though there's a turn. It's like a cutoff.
Clear.
Paul says it's clear. Christian rolls to the front. I roll behind Christian. This is a three-way stop sign. I rolled over something on the road, some piece of metal. It's okay, it wasn't anything, just a more like, it looked like a straight edge. So we're going more south, and you can even see southeast popping up on that circle above the cyclist in the overlay there. So we, instead of going more westerly now, we're going more south to southeast. Through here with these trees, there's certain sections that felt easier. It was really weird in certain spots. It's like you got a reprieve. And we experienced it really well by the time we turned east. It was almost like we had a bit of a break from the wind. And at the end of the ride, when Paul was headed home, I rode with him a part of the way, and it was as if to say you had a tailwind heading east, although the wind was coming from the south, which was on the right. It just didn't seem as intense. Like right here feels a little easier. That's why we're rolling. You see how it speeds. Gone up a bit, 2 kilometers an hour. Going up here. A lot of these rollers don't look it, but they feel it. You go in, you feel it. Your legs will tell you. And you've got to be conscious of your gearing so you can maintain your rhythm. Nothing slows you down more than when you get bogged down. It takes you a while to get back into some kind of rhythm. Hear that wind. It was not the day to be chatting because nobody could hear you. You'd have to be right next door. Notice that I'm in the draft, so I'm spinning a little more. When I get to the front, I usually, in these kind of conditions, I shift up and use more force. But in the draft, you save your legs so that when you get to the front, you can help the group. You don't want to have dead legs while you're in the draft, if you can avoid it. So my cadence is about 10 RPMs higher when I'm in the draft than when I'm at the front. Right here we're going on an incline again. I keep my cadence close to 80 if possible. I stand here just to change the way my muscles are working. It's almost like you're stretching while riding. It's a nice break from the same position. The goats and sheep over there, it looks like. This road is heavily frequented by cyclists. Although the shoulder is not very wide, it's wide enough. It's about the width of a normal bike path. It's about probably 2.5, maybe 3 feet wide, thereabouts. That's really all you need. And the motorists out here are used to cyclists being out here, so they're very aware of us. I must have shifted up because I noticed my cadence is staying around 80. I must have shifted up. And it's easier when you're in the draft to roll a gear because you don't have the same resistance as the person in the front on a relatively flat road. Coming back into the area called Montgomery. I think it's Montgomery High School is nearby here too. Or is it Magnolia? I get them mixed up quite a bit. I think it's Magnolia. So we did not stop on this ride to get any drinks or anything. Whatever we had on the bike worked. It's a very mild day. It wasn't very hot, so we did not need to stop at a store. This is a bit of an incline here. There's a traffic signal ahead, and then we'll go east on 1488. FM 1488 will take us into the woodlands. Checking for traffic here so we can take this lane. I'll let Christian know. I told him to stop because he's gonna go up. I told him no, we're gonna turn after the light. So we head back into the woodlands. On the way home, we're headed south. Right now, we're going to be heading southeast, but mostly south. At this point of the ride, I rolled to the front shortly. I think I turned on the camera here because we had it off for a few miles. And I give it the paw and go ahead and roll behind Christian. And that's the main reason why I pace myself. You know, there's a time when you need to dig deep, and there's a time you need to know how deep to go. Because now here it is, 4 hours into this ride, and I'm feeling very fresh. And we've been fighting this wind for the last 2 hours, it seems like. I mean, most of the ride anyway. It was a blustery day. But this headwind did not give up. It did not relent. A lot more sunshine, so that's nice. staying a little to Christian's left, because even though we're going into the headwind, there's a bit of a blustery breeze, and that spot just seemed to be the best spot to be in. And since Christian moves quite a bit sometimes when he's riding, I never overlapped in the entire ride. And you don't want to overlap somebody unless you're doing an echelon and they know you're there. And they know how to ride an echelon. So we head a little more towards the east. You can see it says southeast up there. We're heading more easterly right here, and we're going up an incline. I'm messing with Paul, sharing a joke with Paul again. And he caught it. He got the punchline. I'm on the hoods and I'm staying low because of the wind. So even though we're climbing, I keep my torso low. And I begin to feel just the impetus go out of Christian's legs here. He backs off a bit for the stop sign. I just go ahead and take the lead. At this point in the ride, I'm firing, so I'm ready. I'm just riding. I like to close out my rides. The last hour, I like to work hard. So we're still climbing and into the wind. You can see how we're tracking next to that white line. To stay next to the white line consistently like that, you use your eyes. Where you look is where your bike goes. So I just look at the edge of the line, and it's easy to keep my bike planted there. It's almost like you hover. That's the key. So if you're going through a lot of obstacles, do not look at the obstacles. Look at the clear pavement, and you will miss the obstacles. Where you look is where you go. That's the way to keep your line. You have to practice that. So this is a descent here, kind of a mild descent. It might get to like -1, maybe. Yes, -1 briefly to -2. But it's not too much of a descent, but it's enough to get a good turn of speed. So after fighting that headwind for more than an hour, it was a relief to go ahead and get my legs up, get the cadence up. Because we've turned into a northeasterly direction. And after about another kilometer, we're gonna go more east. And then after 3 kilometers, we'll go south. This guy's turning left. It's clear. I let the boys know. I put my arm out. We roll. It's a 3-way stop sign. So I had used up all my gels and the electrolytes and everything, and I was topped off. And at this point in the ride, I was feeling very good. I had managed my effort very well. I like to finish my rides strong and not crawl home. We're gonna be turning right here. I let the guys know. I point again for that car so the driver will know. When I turned to climb, before I got there, I downshifted to 5323. It's a 62-inch gear. And it's not cross-chained on that wheel because I've got a 25. I'm still in the big chain ring. I'm keeping the gears reasonable because we got a lot of hills left. Even the ones you guys won't see because the camera the gimbal ends up quitting on us. It ran out of power. The battery is rated 5 hours, and we had filmed something during the week, and I just didn't recharge it, so the battery went dead on Paul. So it gets about 5 hours, which is very good. So at this point, we're going uphill, and I'm spinning. I'm keeping my cadence reasonable. Because right near where I live, there is a 5% hill by the golf course. That's the last one. We ended up sprinting over that one today on this ride. It was fun. Because Christian kept counting down. He said, one more hill. So we crest that hill, and we're going to turn right here. A street called Macbeth Way. This road parallels a main road up there. We just turn here because it's convenient. It's a little quiet. It's not a long distance road per se. It doesn't go very far, but it's part of the route that we use, so it just works. Because the busy road has a wide shoulder, so we could use that if we wanted to. Left turn here. Right up here, we're always checked because the shoulder entrance is very narrow. You have to use the main lane a little bit. Tell them it's clear. You can see right by the curb that's very narrow, then it gets wider. So you want to kind of get on the road. I don't like riding by the curb like that. If your pedal hits that, it can cause you to fall. I think Christian is eating again. The long rides are tough on the body, so if you did not pace yourself properly, you gotta make sure you don't hit the wall. And Christian's comfortable riding long. I mean, he'll do centuries with triathletes that he's friends with. But sometimes, with the conditions like they are, it's hard with the wind. Sometimes you can use more energy than you planned. So I rode conservatively the first 3 hours. Well, except for when we're playing out near Ridge Lake Shores. So I always go to review the ride to see what worked, what didn't, what could I do differently. So on this ride, I was happy with how I paced my effort. Even though we pushed it early in the ride, well, relatively early in the ride, I suffered no ill effects. This is Flint Ridge. We're heading towards Kirkendall, and after that we'll start the short climb. On the last climb in Flint Ridge was when the gimbal, the battery ran out of power, and so the camera went limp, and Paul was messing with it. So he didn't get much of the last climb when I went around to just finish things out. Because Christian had come around to take the lead, and he wasn't firing, so I went back to the front. But it's just a great ride. Great ride. So you can see how low I'm getting to try to cheat the wind a little bit. The road goes up a bit here. I don't know if it registers or not, but you feel it. You can see it. The camera has it correct. You see the grade. There it says 1%. But you feel it. We're going into the wind. It's going up. And all I'm trying to make sure I have a gear that I'm on top of. That's the key. As the conditions change, make sure you stay on top of your gear. Christian was probably relieving the pressure on being on the bike for hours. So we start to get to this intersection. The light is green. It just changed. And I'm keeping my eye on it. And as we get there, it goes to yellow. I put my hand out and let the guys know we're taking it. I put my hand out so they can know we're going. Because you get an extra 6 seconds. If you get in the intersection before it turns red, you got plenty of time. They delay the change of the other side. That's why I was explaining that to Christian. So these are the Flint Ridge Hills. We roll through Kirkendall there, and we begin the hills. And I roll back to the front. And this one is around 4% or so. This is the hardest, I believe. It's not the longest, but it's the hardest going south. We're in the midst of the climb here. And I think I didn't shift down. I kept the same gear. I think I was like a 53, 21, or 19, something like that. There's a guy on the side of the road, so I'm letting the boys know to move over. He was coming around to get in his car, in his truck. So I check the left. Here's a 3-way stop sign. Nothing's coming. I'll let them know it's clear. We don't have to break our momentum. So all I'm doing is I'm shifting up a cog or two and just to feel the gear as we go downhill. I don't want to coast. So I'm riding up and down. I'm riding them. As we go up, I may shift up 1 or 2. It's the end of the ride, so I'm not trying to save my legs at this point. I'm working. So with the hills and directly into the wind here, we're going kind of southeast. So we're going downhill here. I shift up again just so I can feel the gear. To have a gear so we can ride it. So the hill begins here. This is one of the slightly longer ones, I believe. Now that wasn't a long one, that was a shorter one. The long one is coming where you see that car. It curves to the left. It starts on the right where you see that sign, and it curves to the left. I think it's on this climb that Christian comes to the front before the camera, the removal quits on us. The battery goes out. Yeah. The Christian goes to the front. As he comes by, I just slip behind, slip on his wheel. You can see my cadence went up maybe 1 or 2 RPMs, and I realized he's not firing too much, and so I just stayed on him. And right after we crest this, we go down the hill, and I'm not sure, I think this is where Paul starts having problems, but on that last hill, I ended up just coming around Christian to finish the ride. So I hope you all got a chance to get some K's in, but this is where the gimbal battery went kaput and Paul's struggling with it. And you'll see some images where I'm at the front briefly, and so I went ahead and just closed out the film.
Well, it's an epic ride. I'm not using the gimbal right now, I'm just holding the camera in my hand. Almost home. I rode with Paul back to his house so he wouldn't have to ride home alone. And we dropped off Christian part way. Something's going on at the school over here. Not sure what. But, so I hope you all got a chance to get out and get some miles in. Or get your K's in. It was an epic ride. Almost 4 hours and 44 so far on the clock. So it's exactly what we needed to get in today. Ended up being a beautiful day for a bike ride. Very little rain, nothing organized, just showers. Sprinkles is what I call them. So, if you didn't get a chance to get out, get on the trainer or go out and get some K's in tomorrow.